Okay, let's get started. Sit down, quiet down, get out your notebooks, and what you should be doing is you should be actively taking notes. This is Mr. Trutna. Obviously, I am not here today, so these are going to be your notes. We're going to go over factoring, and today we're going to go over technique number 3, which is binomials with a subtraction sign and a perfect square number. And then we're going to go over technique number 4, which will be trinomials with a leading coefficient. Okay, so once again, your notebook should be out. You should already be seated. You should be getting ready to take notes. Okay, and we're going to get going. All right, so something to think about as we're doing the notes. So why did the invisible man not accept the job he was offered? Yep, you got to watch the entire video in order to get the answer to that question. Okay, so here we go. Technique number 3. So if you recall, there are 4 techniques on factoring. Okay, this is factoring technique number 3. All right, so once again, if you were paying attention, there are how many techniques for factoring, Nevada? 7? No, 4. Okay, I literally just said it a second ago. So factoring technique number 3 is going to be factoring binomials. Okay, so that means these are going to have 2 terms in them. That's what binomial means, factoring binomials with a subtraction sign. Okay, so all of these will have a subtraction sign in them. So what does a subtraction sign look like, Justice, you're wondering? You are absolutely right. It looks like that. It's a minus sign. So these are going to be binomials. They're going to be 2 terms. They're going to have a subtraction sign, and they're only going to have perfect square numbers. And they're going to have what we call perfect square numbers. Okay? So this is what we're going to be factoring for technique number 3. What happens when you get a binomial and it has a subtraction sign and it has nothing but perfect square numbers? Okay, so first of all, let's review, because I just mentioned something. I just mentioned perfect square numbers. Okay, so it's a good chance to review. What does it mean by if a number is considered a perfect square number? Okay, well, remember, the perfect square numbers are the results of when you take a number and multiply it by itself. So Brandon, for instance, 1 times 1 is equal to 1. Good job, Brandon. Way to wake up right there. So yeah, and then so 1 is a perfect square number. Why? Because 1 times 1 is equal to 1. Katerina, what is 2 times 2? 4. Oh, good job, Katerina. So 4 is a perfect square number. All right, Carlos, what is 3 times 3? 9. Good job, Carlos. It didn't take you that long to get that there. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. 6 times 6 is 36, 7 times 7 is 49, 8 times 8 is 64, 9 times 9 is 81, 10 times 10 is 100, 11 times 11 is 121, 12 times 12 is 144, and so on and so forth. Okay, you guys? So a perfect square number is basically, if you're not sure if a number is a perfect square number, all you have to do is get out a calculator. Let's take a look at 121. Find the square root of it. So for instance, the square root of 121, if the square root of a number is equal to a whole number, no decimals, then that number right there, 121, that's considered a perfect square number. That's how you check to see if a number is a perfect square number, okay? So for instance, if I said, hey, is 529 a perfect square number, okay? So 529, is it a perfect square number? And you're sitting there going, I don't know, Mr. Trutna. I mean, that's a big number right there, 529. How do I tell if it's a perfect square number? Well, you take the square root of it. So if you take the square root of 529, and notice if the answer turns out to be a number, a whole number that is not a decimal, then it's a perfect square number. So that's how you tell. Okay, so what we're going to be doing here in today's lesson is factoring technique number 3. We are going to learn how to factor binomials, okay, and they are always going to have a subtraction sign, all right, and they're always going to have perfect square numbers in them. So you're going to have to know what happens when you get this situation. So each of these, what we're going to do is we are going to factor completely. Number 1. X squared minus 100. Okay, so if you notice, is this a binomial, Lily? Yes, it is. Why is it a binomial, Angela? Because, yeah, you're right. There is 2 terms, okay? Is there a subtraction sign, everybody? Ah, that's exactly how I expected first period to answer, with like no verbal. Yes, there is. There's a subtraction sign. Is this number a perfect square number? Yes, it is. So this would be considered a binomial with a subtraction sign and a perfect square number. Okay. Now, here's what you're going to do. You are immediately going, if you get a problem like this, what you're going to do is you are immediately going to rewrite this as a trinomial. And what you're going to do is you're going to rewrite it like this. You're going to keep the x squared, but then you're going to put the middle part of the trinomial, which is 0x, and then you're going to put the minus 100. Okay, so you're going to turn this binomial into a trinomial. All right, and the trinomial is we're missing this x part, and since we're missing it, it means we have 0 x's. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we are going to refer to our cheat sheet. You got your cheat sheet for trinomials from yesterday. So we're going to factor this trinomial now. Even though it's a binomial, we turned it into a trinomial. Do you guys all agree that x squared minus 100 is the exact same thing as x squared plus 0x minus 100? Okay? Do you agree with that, Gavin? Sorry, Gavin. Wake up! Oh, okay. Gavin, you still there? Good. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I agree, Mr. Trutna. Great job. Yeah, those are the same thing. So now we're going to use our cheat sheet. So how do we factor a trinomial? Okay. Well, this is a plus minus trinomial. I go to my cheat sheet, which you did on Tuesday. You got this. A plus minus trinomial means you're going to have 2 parentheses. One of the parentheses is going to have a plus. One of them is going to have a minus here. So this is going to, according to my cheat sheet, trinomials always factor into, you put 2 parentheses, one of them will have a plus, one of them will have a minus. Everybody should be able to do this with a trinomial. This is what we talked about on Tuesday. Then what we do is okay, now we're going to fill out the first terms of the trinomial. Well, that's easy to do. This has to be an x, this has to be an x. Why? Because x times x gives me my x to the second power. Okay, and now I have to figure out what numbers go there and what numbers go there. All right, so how do I do that? Remember, I take my very last number of my trinomial, which we called my c value. I write it off to the side like this, and then I'm going to write down all the pairs of numbers that multiply to make 100. 1 times 100, 2 times 50, 4 times 25. I like how you guys are participating and you're yelling out the answers. Kaylee Lore, I could especially hear you doing it. Okay, Kinley. Kinley's probably not here. Okay, but if she is here, she would have said, hey, Mr. Trutna, there's still 5 times 20. Are there any more, Javen? Yeah, nice job, Javen. It's 10 times 10. So these are all the pairs of numbers that are going to multiply to make 100. Now, as we talked about last week, one of these is your answer. Okay, which one is your answer? Well, we look at this middle number here. Okay, so one of these pairs, when I add them or subtract them, they make 0. Which one does it have to be? Think about it there, Jasmine. Which one of these pairs, if I add or subtract, would give me 0? Jasmine, what do you say? 10 and 10. Good. All right. So that means my answers have to be 10 and 10. One of them has to be positive. One of them has to be negative. Why is that it? Because positive 10 minus 10 is equal to 0, which is that. So therefore, these are my factors of x squared minus 100. Okay, it is going to be x plus 10 in parentheses x minus 10. This is the process we're going to do. Number 2, let's do another example. Okay, so let's say I have y to the second power. Notice I mix up the variable. All right, does that matter at all? No, it doesn't there. And then I'm going to put a minus sign, and then over here I'm going to put a number. How about 49? So let's look. Does this qualify for factoring technique number 3? Okay, is it a binomial, Christian Garcia? You don't know what a binomial is, Christian. Binomial means 2. Yes, there are 2 terms. Okay, Ethan, thank you for helping Christian out. Okay, so it is a binomial. Do we have a subtraction sign? Yes, we do. Is this number here a perfect square number, 49? Yes, it is. So this qualifies as factoring technique number 3. So what do I do when I have a binomial with a subtraction sign with a perfect square trinomial? Well, what I do is I change it into a trinomial. I keep the y squared, then I put plus 0y, and then I keep the minus 49. So I change it into a trinomial, putting this middle term as 0y. Okay, now, do you guys agree, Dominic, do you agree that y squared plus 0y minus 49 is the exact same thing as y squared minus 49? Yeah, why? Well, because, duh, 0y means it's not even there, and if it's not even there, that's y squared minus 49. Okay? All right, so now let's factor this trinomial. Okay? I'm going to go to my cheat sheet. Once again, here's my cheat sheet from Tuesday, and I'm going to look at my trinomials. I have a plus minus trinomial, so I know that trinomials, when I factor them, always become 2 parentheses, and my plus minus cheat sheet for a trinomial says I'm going to have a plus and a minus. So I'm going to have a plus here, and I'm going to have a minus. All right, I could fill in the first parts here. Y squared, so what multiplies to make y squared? We get y and y. Okay, and then I have to figure out what numbers I put here and here. So how do I do that? I take my very last number, we call that my C value, which is 49, and off to the side here, I'm going to write all the pairs of numbers that multiply to make 49. Okay, well, what are they? 1 times 49 is 49. There's one other one. It is 7 times 7. Okay, now, one of those is your answer, to put the numbers here and here. So you're either going to put a 1 and a 49 or a 7 and a 7 there. How do you know which one to put? Simple. You look at your middle number here. We call this my B value. Okay, and it's 0. Which one of these pairs could I add or subtract together to make 0? Well, obviously it has to be 7 and 7. Why? Because positive 7 minus 7 is equal to 0. So I know that I put a plus 7 and I put a minus 7 right here. Okay, so that would be my factors for y squared minus 49. All right, everybody kind of understand that? Wonderful. That's how we do factoring technique number 3. Okay, factoring binomials when I have a subtraction sign and a perfect square number. Okay, all right, so we're done with that. That's factoring technique number 3. Now let's move on to factoring technique number 4. Okay, so this is going to be factoring technique number 4. Okay, so let's try again. Nevada, going back to you. How many factoring techniques are there that we're going to learn? Hold on, the lights in the classroom just went out, so I'm walking around giving Nevada a chance to think right here. Sierra, if Nevada doesn't get it, you can help her out. I'll give you a hint, Nevada. I'll give you a hint, Nevada. How many factoring techniques are there? 4! Oh my gosh, Isabella, you didn't have to yell it out. Nevada probably would have got it. Yeah, there are 4 techniques, okay? The 4th and final technique that we're going to learn about factoring is that how do you factor? This one's going to be factoring trinomials with a leading coefficient. Okay, factoring trinomials. So we're going to have a trinomial. What does trinomial mean? Think about it. Think about it. Okay, trinomial, Jordan Westwood, Jordan Burns, Michael Jordan, Jordan Burson, King Jordan III. What is it? Three. Somebody said it. Trinomial means you have three terms. We're going to be factoring trinomials with a leading coefficient. Okay, now we need to talk about what does that mean when we have a leading coefficient. All right, efficient. I know how to spell. And this is going to be our fourth factoring technique, okay? The last one. All right, so what does it mean when you have a leading coefficient? All right, so all that means is that you are going to have a trinomial. Here's number one. So that means you're going to have an x squared. And then you're going to have like a plus 11x, and then you're going to have a plus 5. So that's a trinomial. However, a leading coefficient, what that means is that we have a number in front of the x squared. Right now, there's no leading coefficient. So let's put a number in front of this x squared, okay? So what I want you to do, Riley Alexander, is I want you to think of a number. Okay, Michaela Moss, Hope Nita, think of a number. Also, all three of you are going to think of a number. Adriana Gonzalez, Kylie Madrone, and David Roca, all of you think of a number. What number did you guys all? 2. Unbelievable that you guys all thought of 2. So let's put 2 right here. That 2 is what we refer to as a leading coefficient. Okay, you guys? Why is it called the leading coefficient? Because it's leading the entire problem out. That's why we call it a leading coefficient, okay? What's a coefficient? A coefficient is a number in front of a variable. All right, so now notice this is a trinomial. And notice I have a cheat sheet for trinomials. But there is a problem. This cheat sheet doesn't apply for this trinomial, and the reason is because if you look at your cheat sheet, do any of my trinomials have a leading coefficient? The answer is no. There's no number in front of these x squareds on my cheat sheet, so this cheat sheet I cannot use for this trinomial, okay? But I'm going to teach you a trick. So what we're going to do is we are going to learn how to factor, okay, this problem out completely. Okay, so how do we do it? Well, here's what we do. We want to set up the problem. We want to take this trinomial and we want to get rid of the leading coefficient. So what we do is we take the leading coefficient, the 2, and we are going to multiply it by the 5. Okay, so we're going to move this 2 out of the front, we're going to move it to the back, and we are going to multiply. All right, now when I do that, I change the look of my trinomial. Okay, so what would the look of my new trinomial be? Blake Jones? Blake Ramos? Anybody named Blake? Oh, Blake Jones, got it. Nice job, Blake. Now your trinomial becomes x to the second power, the 2 is no longer there, plus 11x plus, and now it's not 5, it's 5 times 2, that is 10. Okay, so notice I changed this trinomial to that trinomial. Now can I use my cheat sheet? Yes, I can. I don't have a leading coefficient. This is a plus trinomial. So according to my cheat sheet, plus means I'm going to have 2 parentheses. Trinomials always factor into 2 parentheses, and we're going to have a plus and a plus in each parentheses. Okay? I know what goes in the first part of each parentheses because I have an x squared here, so I'm going to put an x and an x because why? Because x times x is x squared. Then I want to fill in what numbers go after each addition symbol, after each plus. So how do I do that? Well, I take my last number, which we call my C value, which is 10, and I'm going to write down the pairs of numbers that multiply to make 10. 1 times 10, 2 times 5. One of those is my answer, and the answer is which pair can be added together or subtracted together to make my B value, which is positive 11. Well, that has to be 1 and 10. 1 plus 10 is equal to 11. So I put a plus 1 there, and I put a plus 10 right there. Okay? Now, many people would stop right here, and they would say, oh, cool, Mr. Trutna, I got my answer. All right, but this, if you notice, this can't be the answer. And the reason why this can't be the answer is because if I multiplied this back out, it would not get me to what I started with. And this is the problem that I started with, okay? And remember, when I started, I had a 2 leading my problem. But I moved the 2 over here. How did I move the 2 over there? Well, I multiplied by 2. So now I have to make up for multiplying by 2. I have to undo this. Now I have to move the 2 back. Well, if I moved it over here by multiplying by 2, and I need to move it back, so to speak, what do you think I would do? I would do the opposite of multiplying. Anisha, what's the opposite of multiplying? Adding. No, Anisha. Adding's not the opposite of multiplying. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. So this means I have to divide by 2. So what I do is I divide that 1 by 2. And I divide that 10 by 2. Why am I dividing by 2? Because I multiplied by 2 at the beginning. And this gives me a final answer. Okay, and here's the rule. If the 2 divides into the number evenly, go ahead and divide it. So this second parenthesis becomes x plus 5. Why 5? Because 2 divides into 10 to make 5. However, if the 2 does not divide in evenly, okay, like here, right here, 2 does not divide into 1, what you do is you take the bottom number, and if it does not divide in evenly, you move it to the front of the x. You make it a leading coefficient again. Okay, so that 2 would move into the front, and then we put plus 1. We leave that. Why did I have to move the 2? Because the 2 does not divide in. This would be your factored form. Okay, so we get 2x squared plus 11x plus 5. When I factor that, that turns out to be 2x plus 1 and x plus 5. Okay, let's do another one here. We're going to do 2 more, and then we're going to be done. We're going on 23 minutes right now. So we're going to be done within 5 minutes. Okay? All right, I need to stop for a second. Reese, are you okay? Oh, I thought you passed out. Christian Garcia, Jordan Fuentes, are you okay? Okay, all of you guys look like you passed out. Your eyes were closed. I almost had to call 119 in order to help you guys out there. Number 2, let's move on. Okay, so my next problem that I'm going to factor, 3x to the second power plus 14x plus 8. Write that down. 3x to the second power plus 14x plus 8. So I'm going to factor that, okay? All right, so I go, this is a trinomial. Notice 1, 2, 3 terms. They're all different, separated by addition. So I'm going to look at my cheat sheet. Can I use my cheat sheet for trinomials? The answer is no, because I have this leading coefficient. Okay, so I need to get rid of this. How do I get rid of it? I cross it off and I move it to the back. Now when I move it to the back, what do? I multiply. So that I get a new trinomial. X squared plus 14x plus, now it's no longer 8, it's 8 times 3, so I get 24. Now I could refer to my cheat sheet to factor this trinomial. Notice this trinomial now, right where my finger is pointed, it has no leading coefficient. This is a plus trinomial, so when I factor it, all trinomials, we can all do this. We draw 2 parentheses, plus means I have addition in both parentheses. The first term of each parentheses, I have x squared here, so I'm going to put x and x. Okay, and now I'm going to fill in what numbers go after each addition symbol. Okay, so how do I do that? Well, I take my very last term, we call that my C value, 24, and I write all the pairs of numbers that multiply to make 24. One of the pairs will be my answer. So, 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, 4 times 6. Which one of those pairs is my answer? Okay, I look at my middle term here, which is called my b value, and it's a positive 14. So which one has to be my answer? It has to be 2 and 12. Why 2 and 12? Well, because 2 plus 12 is equal to 14 is what I have there. So I put x plus 2, x plus 12. Okay, am I done? I factored this trinomial out. The answer is no, Mr. Trutna, I'm not done. Riley, Hannah, Maya, Donovan, Keanu, what do you do? I'm not done. Oh, you're right. I have to undo this timesing by 3. So how do you undo a timesing by 3, Anisha? No, Anisha, you don't add, you divide, for goodness sakes. So we're going to divide both of these numbers by 3. Why am I dividing by 3? Because that was my leading coefficient. And I moved it over by multiplying by 3. Okay, so what's the rule when I'm dividing? If it divides, divide it out. So the second parentheses becomes x plus 4. Why? Because the 3 divides into 12 to make 4. Now this first parentheses here, does 3 divide into 2? The answer is no. So if it doesn't divide, what you have to do is you cross it out from the denominator and you move it up here so it becomes a leading coefficient for the 3 and the x. So this first parentheses becomes 3x plus 2. That is my factored form of number 2. So when I factor 3x squared plus 14x plus 8, it factors into 3x plus 2, x plus 4. Okay? One more, and then you guys will move on to your next thing. Okay? Or, yeah, your next thing that the teacher is going to tell you what to do. Number 3. So, the trinomial is 5x to the second power plus 9x minus 2. All right? Notice we have a leading coefficient. Okay, so I cannot use my cheat sheet yet. So I have to get rid of this 5. How do I get rid of it? Simple. Take it, move it to the back. When you move it to the back, 5 goes in the back here. What do we do with those two numbers at the back side? We multiply. So when I do that, I have a new trinomial, x to the second power plus 9x minus 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, now I could use my cheat sheet to see what this trinomial becomes. So trinomials, everybody can do this. They factor into 2 parentheses. This is a plus minus trinomial. My cheat sheet right here, plus minus, says I'm going to have a plus and a minus in my parentheses. You guys should memorize this cheat sheet here. Okay, all right, so what do I put in the first part of each parentheses? Easy, x and x. Okay, what do I put in the second part of the parentheses? Not so easy. I have to do a little bit of math to figure that out. So I take my last number, which we call my c value, which is 10. I put it over here, and I'm going to write the pairs of numbers that multiply to make 10. There's only 2, 1 and 10, and 2 and 5. One of those are my answers. Which one is it? I look at this number right here, 9. Can't be 2 and 5. It has to be 1 and 10. Okay, now notice I have to have a plus and a minus. So my choices are, I could have a plus 10 and a minus 1, or I could have a plus 1 and a minus 10. Which one is it? Well, it's at 9. It's plus 9. So which one does it have to be? Duh, it has to be plus 10 minus 1, because that's plus 9. That's positive 9. So x plus 10, x minus 1. Okay, so that's what we would do. I'm not done though, because I got to make up. I moved the 5 by multiplying. So now I have to divide by 5. Okay, so I'm going to have to divide by my leading coefficient, which is 5. And you divide both of them by 5. All right? First one, does it divide evenly? Heck yeah, it does. What does that become? 10 divided by 5, 2. X plus 2. The second parentheses, does 5 divide evenly into 1? No. So what do we do with it? Cross it out. Move it so it goes in front. And my second parentheses becomes 5x minus 1. Okay? that would be my factored form of 5x squared plus 9x minus 2. Okay, and we're done. You're going to have worksheets like this that you're going to do. All right, so, and hopefully you could refer to your notes. Okay, so, why did the invisible man not accept the job he was offered? He couldn't see himself doing it. All right? Have a good day, you guys. Work hard the rest of the class. And remember, life is not a coincidence. Math is not a coincidence. Boom.